All right. So we're talking about what we perceive as some of the common mistakes or lies or, just general kind of misleading trends or memes or information in the fitness industry.
Mhm,
I think that this is obviously near and dear to us as coaches.
mhm.
I like to see people make progress with a reasonable amount of effort. I like to see people making progress as a result of the effort that they're putting in. And I
Mm,
feel like there are so many people out there that are stepping in the gym, trying to be intentional with their food, but they're spinning their wheels and they're not really getting where they want to go.
yeah,
And I think it's probably because they're just missing a few key pieces of information.
yeah.
Yeah, it's making some small mistakes. So,
Do you think that there's like, kinda just obviously jumping into this topic, I always think about this because I think as a blanketed statement, the fitness industry is used to describe like kind of a broad span. Like nowadays we have social media. Like I would say like, 80s and as like fitness was like becoming very trendy and bodybuilding and all that stuff, you could say it was like maybe these big if it was supplement corporations, if it was, Adkins and, all these like fad diets, like I guess you could define that as fitness industry, if you will. Now it's almost like, I mean, you're talking influencers, other coaches, you're talking people who have podcasts, like so many avenues to umbrella that fitness industry statement, which even as a whole, like that's confusing.
yeah, for sure.
So
What's
I
the
don't know. I guess what
yeah,
I'm trying to
you
say
said
is I
you
think
started
what
with a question.
yeah, I think the point of that is to say like it's really easy to like try and find the if it's an individual thing that you point the finger at to blame. But I just think that the market in itself has become so saturated that it's not like one thing.
Mm,
And so in that I think I guess jumping into like kind of point number 1 for me, I guess, is think that's probably one of the things that I've found creates a lot of confusion is you have so many different voices and avenues and people like spreading information like you're saying that it's like who do you listen to? Like who's really speaking truth? Who is really like giving value? And you know, I guess how do you learn to like build trust with or build credibility with like people of influence in the fitness industry?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think things to look out for. I mean, in reality, a lot of so much of the fitness industry, like you were saying, is social media now. Like that's that's driving so much of it. YouTube, Instagram, right? Podcasts. I think the long form stuff is great because anyone who's having long form conversations is exploring, right? And playing with ideas versus like taking a narrow lane.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, what to look out for is like anyone who is making like aggressive claims towards like one modality of fitness or, promoting their own like specific niche or like technique or, their like, secret sauce to like getting fit.
Mm.
Anyone that's like dogmatic or intentionally controversial or like doing something just to kind of get put on or like be,
Mhm.
I think that that's something to look out for. It's like that person's probably what they're displaying out there on social media to get likes or generate
Mhm.
business or, promote themselves is probably not something that's going to apply well to general population people, you know?
Yeah.
So you see these characters that like for instance, I'll just throw this out there, like Liver King is a big one.
Sure.
And he wasn't even necessarily, but he's part of the fitness industry because so much of what he was doing was talking about fitness and being strong and healthy
Mhm.
and, promoting his supplements
Yep.
as the foundation of his health and
Yes.
fitness. Like, huge on like his physique and how jacked and lean he is. He was so dogmatic about you have to live this way and you have to do this and train, train this way and like, look at me.
Mhm.
I'm jacked and shredded, but like,
Yeah,
obviously
it's that like
there's something behind the curtain.
yeah,
He's,
being on like the extreme side of the spectrum, if you will.
yeah.
Like you're saying, like living in the it has to be this way or the highway type like mindset and not like thinking it could be different, maybe like being open to the other side of the spectrum, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, to your point too, it's a fine line of, like, aggressively selling a product through the thing that you're trying to discuss. I mean, at the end of the day, like, listen, I use social media, I market myself through social media. There are things that I have to do to generate business that is like, I have to convince you that this is the problem and this is the solution, and then me as the coach can come alongside you. But there's, like, certain individuals that, like, there's a way they go about it that just feels, like, weird, you know what I mean? Like, it just
Yeah.
and I would say those are definitely red flags.
Yeah, that's a red flag. Anyone that's like claiming that one specific way is
Mhm,
the only way, or that, yeah, that's it. Is like the answer is always it depends.
mhm.
Like, when you're talking about what should I eat? What workouts should I do? And then that scales out obviously to the rest of your life, but it's like depends on who you are, where you're at, where you're going. You know what I mean?
Yep,
And it's hard to touch on all of those things with a 60-second Instagram post, which
yeah,
is something I struggle with. Is like,
yep.
how do I get a message out
Yeah,
when I
you
don't
wanna
want to
be, like,
like,
super clear on what you're all about philosophically almost, and, like, you don't want to, like, sway people in, like, a negative direction, but in the same breath, like, everything is all about, like, clickbait, like, not to, like, call anybody out, but I was watching, like, the knees over toes guys, and, like, I watched a video and it was like, "Do you have shoulder pain? Like, do these 5 exercises and watch what happens," and it's like, well, how can we define, like, pain? Where is that pain coming from? What is causing that? How do we dig a little bit deeper? And how do we know that maybe just 2 of these 6 exercises or whatever are really what the client needs, and now they're gonna waste all their time going through X, Y, and Z to get to the solution. But to that point, I think that's, like, what social media is now. It's like I said this really clicky statement or this really, like, sorry, catchy statement that's gonna, like, grab your attention, and now you're sucked in, and now you're gonna, like, hear my information, but is that painting the whole truth of a picture, if you will?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the struggle for grabbing people's attention.
Mhm.
I think knees over toes guy has some really valuable stuff to
Absolutely.
offer,
Yep.
but unfortunately, you have to be snappy to get people's attention,
Yes.
and I think he's mastered that. But and again, that's just in a general sense, like anyone who's general population and looking for a coach or following people on social media, like, again, if someone's just on a really narrow path and they're making the claim that what they're doing is the only way, then there's probably some fuckery about. It's like,
That's such a good word.
yeah, yeah,
No,
it's just,
absolutely.
yeah, it's like, okay, they may have something good to share,
Yeah.
but it's it I like people that are exploring, playing with ideas,
Mhm,
and are like changing their mind, you know?
mhm,
Like that seems like someone who's genuinely thinking about
mhm,
the problem of like, oh, people are not fit, people are in pain, people aren't healthy, they're struggling with the way that they feel
mhm,
and their experience in this reality, in this life, in this body. You know, what what can we do to help people?
mhm.
For like really just exploring that and thinking about genuinely thinking about those topics, and how to be of service, then it's like you get to a lot broader spectrum of these things work most of the time. These things work most of the time. Depends on the person, depends on the situation. It always depends.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like being able to like weed out the credible individual to like, are you credible because of this big influence? But in the same breath, who is that influence? Like, because you could go on someone's Instagram profile and click on who's following them, and if it's just a bunch of nobodies, like,
Bots.
yeah. Well, so I think like one thing I like try to do is like hear the point. Obviously, is if you're scrolling using Instagram or TikTok or whatever as the example here, like as you're scrolling, if you kind of get that attention grabber, you're hooked, you like what they say, like you can very well like go to their followers and just look at the individuals who are like following them, because if those people are also credible and knowledgeable in these specific areas and they value this other person's opinion, like, okay, like maybe they know their shit, and it's someone worthwhile listening to.
Yeah, and there's plenty of
Yeah.
people out there that are sharing
Yeah.
great information and exploring topics and,
Yes.
changing their mind and like not being dogmatic and just trying
Yeah.
to share good information. There's
Yeah.
so many.
Hey, this is what works for me, might not be what works for you. Like those are great statements to hear,
Mhm.
because it's like you said, you're exploring, you're trial erroring, and kind of using scientific method on what you're going through and you're experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah.